Welcome back. So I'm on to using this chem seal to bond in the second window, the second door, or the window on the second door. So this is the tube there, and you actually sort of push that plunger in and out and turn it around, and that actually mixes the catalyst or the hardener with the actual stuff itself. You do about 50 different pulling and outs, and then so what I'm doing is I'm sticking this regular drinking straw on the end, and I'm sort of sliding that in the gap there because I have a little bit of room with the wedges in there, and I'm putting the sealant in there, and then I'm using those green bits of at cutting board, thin cutting board, to sort of move it all around, so I get good coverage there, and then clamp it all up. And actually got it to do a nice job again on this one. So I think the problem's been resolved with sealing that window, and then with the fasteners that should really fix all that problem. And meanwhile, Devin and Jeff are on the last stage of the layup for the second wing spar. So here you can see they've got the core in there, and they're just laying the closeout carbon fiber there to finish it off. So that one almost ready to be done and bagged. So that leaves pretty much the last of the large parts that are ever going to be laid up for this prototype. So it's exciting to get that done. And here they're in the process of just getting the bag sorted out. So just that green tacky tape there is what seals it down. If you've been following along, you'll kind of know the process and how it all works out. But yeah, that's pretty much done and almost ready to pull the vacuum on that bag. And now this is the next day, so this is Friday morning, and they're actually in the process of peeling everything back, and it'll be time to release the part and get it trimmed off. So one more down. And while I'm waiting for those windows to sort of cure up, because there's 72 hours before I really wanted to touch those, looking at something else that we can work on. So this is the elevator now for the foreplane, and I wanted to show you this. I really haven't had a chance to show you this in detail. So that's the elevator there, highlighted in blue, or the bottom skin of it. And I wanted to show you how we've got this sorted out. So this is a 2H elevator or 2H flap system that we're using, so it doesn't really have any external hinges. So this hinge track that I've highlighted there is similar to how like the flap track works on a Cessna 172 or 182, and it's basically just two rollers there that the elevator rides on to give it its travel, and it doesn't really sort of hinge down like a normal elevator. It actually sort of follows along that path more like a flap does, more like a Fowler flap, but it's actually known as a 2H flap design, and so it gives really good lift. And this is what it looks like when you hide some of the bits and pieces. But what I wanted to show you here was, because of the way it works with those sliding rollers, to actuate it, we're starting off here in the center section of the of the forward bulkhead, and you've seen this before. So I've got a little bell crank there, and then there'll be a push rod connected to that, and then that connects to each of these 4 different bell cranks, and each of those bell cranks will have a push rod that sort of goes back through a small hole in the spar and actually pushes on the elevator to move it in and out. So, and you need kind of 4 in order to have it move evenly on the tracks, because there's nothing really stopping it from sort of going further out on one end than the other, unless everything's fully interconnected. So this will be a cool low drag design, because you don't have any hinges really hanging down or anything like that, and it's also high lift. So later on, if we decide to put flaps or flaperons on the main wing, there'll be enough lift available on the foreplane to handle it. So what I did was I printed out and cut all these templates out for all those different bits and pieces that make up those bell cranks, and just cutting them out of 1/8 an inch 6061 aluminum. So that begins the process, and there was, I believe, 14 and 14 and 2 and another 7 or something like that. So something like 36 different parts to cut out. So I ended up spending most of Friday cutting, drilling and trimming those parts. And on Friday we welcomed Dan, who's a new member to our team. He's going to be with us for a little while, helping out. He's got some automotive experience, but he's in the process of doing his PhD in aerospace engineering. So he's got some good experience to help us out as well. And the first thing I had him do here is just create these little closeout panels out of carbon fiber that cover the little these pins that go through and hold the upper linkages of the gear for pressurization. And onto the spar. So spar release there, and Jeff's already trimmed off the flange there, so it came out nicely, just like the other one. So that one's just needs the closeouts in the corner there, and a closeout by the root, and that one will be ready to bond in place with the rest of the wing stuff. And meanwhile, Devin's in the process of laying up the last of these two ribs after those molds were completed. And these are the last two ribs for the foreplane, which basically means the last two ribs for the prototype. And this is what it looks like there, one of them at least, when it's under the bag. So just the last one remaining, which he actually got done by the end of the day. So it's going to be exciting. We'll be moving on to sort of putting things together soon. And here's Dan. He's using some silicone sealant around the bolt heads, and also just around the little flange edge of that cover plate to stop any air from leaking out through that opening or through the bolts there when we pressure test the cabin. So just running a sort of circular bead of silicone there around where that big heavy pin for the upper landing gear comes through that bulkhead. So we're in the process of just sort of closing out all the different parts where air can escape through the cabin, and so that's what it looks like when those panels are in place. So he did a nice job on those, and actually looking forward to having him do a bunch more stuff. So he's probably going to be working on stuff with the engine soon and getting that new intercooler hooked up for me while I'm working on the doors again next week. And then he also did a cover plate there for those front ones. Those just temporary, so we don't have to put the pressure controllers in there, or the outflow valves. And onto the brackets here. So I've cut all those, and now it's in the process of just sanding those. I just wanted to show you. I don't usually do it with one hand, holding the camera. Just wanted to show you how I go about smoothing those off and getting those ready for Britt to weld up. And then a center punch there in the center of each of the holes that need to be drilled, and then onto the drill press. And here I got Dan just notching out a little bit of a space there in the front of the foreplane spar, so we could put a hard point in there for where that aileron bell crank resides. And this is towards the end of the day now, Friday, and Dan and I are just working on these little holders there for those bell cranks that you would have seen in the CAD stuff earlier, and just smoothing those off. And then I've got all the brackets there, just cleaning those up with some acetone, getting all the glue off there that holds the templates on. And this is how they look, and it's supposed to be on an angle like that, and so that will get welded, slid on that tube and welded on there like with a few other pieces, and that starts making up each of the bell cranks. So anyway, that's our update for the second half of this week, and tune in again next week. So it'll be a regular video on Tuesday, and we'll see what we're getting up to. And thanks again for watching.